Hey, is this thing on? Oh, goody. Just a sidebar before we begin. This week's episode of Star Trek Discovery had Adira letting Stamets and the crew of the Discovery know about their preferred pronouns. But this show was recorded before that episode aired. Both Josh and I are both trying to be considerate as it relates to Adira's pronouns, as they were known at the time.
You know my problems with Doctor Who in representation. I think I mentioned that in the last episode. Uh, but I think Torchwood actually handled it correctly with the Yanto Jack relationship. It was something that
I love Jack.
they developed that relationship. It was some. You could see how Yanto was pining after Jack, for the longest time, and how Jack was resisting that for the longest time. But the way they developed that, that final head canon into canon was very well done. You know, Even though Jack was already this pansexual, polysexual character, they still worked on that relationship dynamic in the show. So I was impressed. Torchwood did it right, and I wish that the Doctor Who writers would pay attention to what they're doing, to what they did, and to how they handled um, gay relationships in Torchwood, because I think Doctor Who tends to just say, "Hey, this guy's gay. Let's just mention it. Let's just mention it and talk nothing of it. Talk nothing about it for the rest of the episode." you know?
Let's talk nerdy things, yeah, like comic books and superheroes, with some nerdy picks, yeah, writers, cartoonists, and so much more. Whoa, yeah, so stick around and have some fun with the lovely and adorable Eva Webb. Eva Webb.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Titular Characters. I am your adorable host, Eva Webb, and tonight we're here with author, animator, creator of the mysterious Mrs. E, and owner of the NJ4K YouTube channel, one of my favorite people around, Josh MacPhearson.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm still working on it pretty hard. The animation's coming along quite nicely, so I'm very excited as to how quickly I've adapted after 40 years of being, 40 years of art. I haven't animated in 12 years, so when I found out I was still actually good at it, I was like, yeah, I can do this. So,
So, one thing I've been working on lately is trying to do more with YouTube.
mhm.
Like do more visually and make more visually appealing things for this podcast. And last night I was messing around with Flash, and I was able to do some cool stuff. And then I downloaded a newer tool that did the same kind of timeline editing. This
Yeah.
time with Hipani, and it's amazing what sticks with you as far
Oh
as
yeah.
your skill set there. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. I
stuff I
was like,
haven't done for years. I just fell right back into.
yeah, I was like, I was looking at Toon Boom Harmony, which is, which in itself is expensive. I was looking at, I mean, we're talking geeks now, um, uh, Open Tunes, which was used by Studio Ghibli. And thankfully, I had a friend teach me how to use Open Tunes just last week. And so I tried, I started applying it to Blender, Grease Pencil, and it's amazing. You can do exactly the same thing on all three of these programs. You just got to learn, the difference between the tools they're talking about, which are exactly the same tools they actually use in other programs. So it's just amazing. Like you say, it's just amazing how quickly you just go back into these things. Like at the moment, I draw with the mouse because my tablet's not working. And when I drew on Flash, I used the mouse. I did a lot of my clean artwork with the mouse. And now, forgive me if I toot my own horn here, it's amazing how talented I found I actually was. It's what I learned, Deluxe Paint 3 way back in the Amiga days. Everybody drew and painted with a mouse back then.
Oh, sure. You know what amazes me about this particular project, and for people just sort of
Yeah,
tuning in and not familiar with what this is a an animation project that you are basically animating yourself. You are doing all of the work on animation there. It's not like a
yeah,
studio's behind you or
no.
that you've got like some huge pool of resources. You're actually doing an entire show from scratch, and that's super exciting, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's important to know that I wouldn't have been able to do it without the dedicated voice cast that I have and the writers that I have as well. I mean, I, I mean, yeah, the majority of the writing's down to me, but thankfully I have other writers that are paying attention to how the story's going along, so that when they introduce their scripts, they're not messing up the plot. But yeah, everything's kind of off my own back. So as a result, you have to learn how to create something that looks professional, that looks like it could go on Cartoon Network, but you don't have the time to do every single cell by hand. So you've got to find other ways to make it look like it's a clean animated show without being able to do. I mean, 24 frames a second. I know people. It's 3 seconds of animation in a day for one person. Half the time, if you're doing it all frame by frame.
That one show, Adventure Time,
Yeah,
that show they do every cell by hand, and it takes like something like 3 years to do an episode.
yeah. So if it was, yeah, exactly. If you're on your own, you'd be. It would kill you. So and so in order for them to have that complete season, they had an entire studio behind them. Shira, Steven Universe, those shows wouldn't have seen the turnaround they had without the dedication, without the dedicated team they have, and that majority of that is hand by hand animation. So thankfully we now have tools and free tools as well. Like I said, Blender and OpenToons being prime examples that not only make that process easier and quicker, but it also allows you to look into ways of how you can actually mix the two together. I mean, I'm still doing frame by frame, but not nearly as much as I would have done, say, 10, 10, 15 years ago, where I wouldn't have had a choice. Flash was, I think Flash was the program that actually changed the way people look at animation. Look at Gumball. I think that's an entirely Flash animated series, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, and
Yeah.
it's fabulous.
Mm.
Flash, I've done so much cool stuff with Flash over the years. I still have it installed on my PC, and now and then, I'll get this thought in my head, you know, we should probably do this in Flash. And then, cooler minds prevail and I find some other way of doing it.
Hmm.
Because the
Yeah.
problem with old Flash right now is that it is not friendly to modern video formats at
It
all.
isn't. It isn't. I remember. I think the best it could do was release in. You could render it in AVI format. Oh my God, do we remember AVI? Jeez, is that still a thing these days? Yeah.
I think they still use it for
Yeah.
like pirated movies on the DivX codecs.
Yeah.
I don't think
AVI.
I see it in anything legit anymore though.
Yeah, AVI was so big back in the time, and DivX was a lifesaver for a lot of people. But unless you knew how to use DivX, your quality would be so low. It's amazing, But now we have MP4. A lot of the movies up on now up on YouTube these days are probably under a gigabyte big these days. If they're about an hour, if they go on for about an hour, so they're probably a gigabyte, probably, if you compress well enough, 300 megabytes, for a full HD movie nowadays. Back in the day, you were looking at huge hard drive space.
It was a ridiculous amount of space. Like even now, when you do it raw, like
Yeah.
so like when I take the podcast down and I put it on YouTube, It runs usually, the runtime for one of these is usually about 90 minutes, anywhere between, 85, 84 minutes and 90 minutes, something like that.
Yeah,
Sometimes, I get a 60-minute interview or whatever. So when I upload that to YouTube with a video backdrop and just do the basics there, it's 5 gigs, 8
yeah.
gigs, it's a big upload. And I can't seem to get it any smaller, at least with Filmora. That's the tool that I use for that.
I mean, I managed to get an hour long down to about 600 megabytes. It's see if I can go through the process and see if I can teach you how to do it as well. But at the moment, my internet is my phone, so I can't upload huge files like I used to. Um, one of the drawbacks of the COVID situation is a lot of us are out of work, and a lot of us don't have the essential needs we have to find work or to get work, like the internet. It's amazing nowadays. The internet, especially during a pandemic, should be considered an essential tool at this point. But it just amazes me that that it's still a private thing. The we're isolated now, but largely due to if we step outside, we risk getting infected or dying. So why isn't the internet considered an essential tool? It just astounds me.
In America, we have this thing where we conveniently ignore the fact that human rights exist just across the board.
Yeah.
And internet is definitely one of those human rights. Another one, food and shelter,
Hmm.
are also human rights, and we ignore those too. We have more people starving in America than anywhere else in the industrialized world. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, me and my cast are actually talking about it earlier today because we were talking about, they were asking me what, about and diversity and, and and I told them about what influenced me with my characters and stuff. And I said, I mean, I don't take medication for my depression because I can't afford it. And it turned to an interesting discussion. One of my cast members works in the military and she gets subsidized and her medication paid for. And then people ask her, why does it cost the taxpayer so much money for, for the medication, for the care that you get? And the answer's simple. It's because we rely on the private industry. We've got a lot of people out there who are unable to pay their bills, so the taxpayer is subsidizing that. So what people don't understand is that privatized privatized medicine is what's costing the country more than it can afford. If it actually went national, they would be saving a heck of a lot because people wouldn't have to worry about their bills. Their bills had already been paid for by their tax dollars already. But because we're dealing with paperwork and unpaid bills and people paying $80,000 for a basic operation, in some cases, we're in this financial mess.
And meanwhile, health insurance, even through an employer, subsidized at this point.
Hmm.
You're paying. I mean, I'm really lucky that I can afford to do it. But
Yeah.
I'm paying I'm paying about $300 a week for health insurance a week.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
not even a month.
Yeah.
And if I bought it in like the private insurance marketplace, I would be paying more. And that's a high deductible plan where like in order to like even get there, I'm still going to have $13,000 in medical bills once I reach my premium, and that is ridiculous. Nobody else in the world anywhere
No.
has to deal with this nonsense, and it's immoral because I'm pretty lucky in that I'm still fairly able-bodied, I'm still sharp, but not everybody is,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Which kind of brings me to the political point. Now we have President-elect Biden there. He's not going to move forward with Medicare for all, which is a sad thing. But we now have a bitter president who's going to, let's face it, he's going to do everything he can to make the system as difficult as he can for the Democrats and for us, and a Congress that is still refusing to discuss a stimulus bill, refusing to discuss it, even more so now. Mitch McConnell is not opening the floor to discuss what Americans need.
Right. Well, because he doesn't work for Americans. He works for big oil companies.
Mm-hmm.
He works for Pfizer. He works for, all these other interests.
Yeah,
It's not politics, it's bribery.
it's
It's
bribery.
people with power selling their influence, and it should be illegal. We should not be allowed to do this in America.
So all eyes are now on Georgia, because they didn't get their 50%. So now they have to go through this whole rigmarole again, where they have to spend millions of dollars on advertising campaigns. And it's just a fucking mess. It's just a fucking mess. And I don't have enough faith in Georgia to do the right thing. I mean, we've got to move on to more happier stuff in a few minutes, I guess. But yeah, but we have to. I mean, the thing is that what worries me is that because we're now talking about normal, I think this black woman, I retweeted, said it best. What the hell is normal? Normal is what got us into this mess in the first place. Normal for me as a black person was being afraid that a cop was going to pull me over. That's what she said. That's normal. What did you do about police brutality when things were normal? Nothing. What did you do about about discrimination in the workplace when everything was normal? Nothing. I mean, good grief, people were arguing about bathrooms during the Obama administration. Bathrooms, they turned that into a political argument. I'm sorry.
They're still arguing about bathrooms, by the way.
Yeah, I know they are, but let's move on to other topics, I think, otherwise this show could really get into a real political banter. Yeah, I mean, you could just literally do a list down and say boring politics part here, and then you can click to this if you want to watch the Discovery part. Yeah.
Because we do have to talk about Discovery.
Wow. I think it's great. I think, we still have no idea what the burn is, but for me, I'm not going to go into the plot because there's still a lot to take in. I'm excited about my non-binary hero right now. Adria, I believe, the symbiote host.
Yeah, and there's her boyfriend, who
Yeah.
is also a symbiote, but played by a trans man. I don't remember his name. I thought that was extremely cool. Extremely cool.
Yeah, it cheered me up, no, and largely because the way they did it, as opposed to how they used to do it in Star Trek, was they didn't make that the transgender issue or the non-binary issue as the issue of the episode. That's what I loved about it. They were just who they were. They didn't even bring it up. I like that. That's how I want my shows to to present themselves. I don't want one thing that I tire of sometimes is when shows make a gay character or a transgender character, and and they have to make a thing of it before they go on with the rest of the plot. And Discovery is doing such a good job of saying, I'm not even pointing out that that Adria is non-binary or that his boyfriend was transgender. They didn't do that. They just said, this is a couple. That's it. I love that. I hope that they continue with that, with that approach.
Absolutely.
I kind of got that impression, it's kind of because they went out of their way to announce they were going to do this, and I'm like, being a creator myself, my approach to it is just don't announce it. There's no point, because if you start announcing these things as a disabled non-binary myself, you're making it sound as if I'm something unique, something special, something to be, and I don't want to be treated like that. I just want to be treated like someone who goes into a store and wants to get my partner a wedding cake. That's it. The phrase I want for this inclusion is for the lack of attention they drew to it. Because once you start drawing attention to this, it sounds to me like you're trying to get that praise for doing something different rather than actually just, throwing in a transgender or non-binary actor into the role, because they were good for the role. That's what you should be doing. That's what I think. That's what my preferred form of representation is not. It's let the fans make a big deal of it. When you start making a big deal of it, it's something that we call in the industry queer baiting. That's what I felt when I saw the announcement. I'm kind of like, I'm excited. They're going to have a non-binary character. And then I realized I was actually falling into the trope of being excited by something that really, to me, is an everyday thing.
I don't think being excited about seeing good representation on TV or in your
It's a
favorite
bad thing.
shows
No,
is a
no,
bad thing at all. I don't think it is.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think that my approach is just basically just bring it in and then let the fans notice. Let the audience notice this rather than make it a thing. I guess I guess it kind of brings me back to my original point about voyeurism. I'm not a I'm not a caricature to be voyeurized or dysphoriarized by people who have no idea what it means to have dysphoria. I mean, you understand it better, probably better than I do, but I don't want people making that the main theme as to why I'm in this show.
So like when they did it in Supergirl,
Yeah.
they gave us a trans superhero and her supporting cast.
Hmm.
And the way they framed her supporting cast, like her roommate, is this really early stage trans woman of color. You
Yeah.
can tell that she's like maybe 8 months on hormones.
Yeah.
She's very, very early stage. And what bothered me about that is the victimhood narrative.
Yeah.
They do this a lot where, they're like, oh, here's a trans woman. She's obviously a trans woman. Look how hard her life is. Look
Hmm.
at this horrible hatred that she has to put up with. And then they give us another trans woman who is, she's passing and she's cute and she's, looking amazing. And you'll notice, has none of these problems.
Hmm.
She has problems with internet trolls accusing her of being a man, which we all do, obviously. But
Yeah.
that's her biggest problem.
With it's like with Mrs. E. As you know, we don't save the gay thing till the last episode because I think that's just a cop out. Um, my characters are married. We have a trans character in the show, and yes, we do mention the difficulties that these characters have being who they are, but at the same time we try and do it in a way that that gives the message out that yes, there are problems, but these people live normal everyday lives as well. There's this one moment in episode 3 where Susan, not Aiko, the secondary primary character, she's on another planet and she starts criticizing how ghetto the planet she's on looks, and the alien character turns around and says, why do you think these people are here? They're here because they've got nowhere else to go. They're here because society has ostracized them. They're here because the laws haven't helped them out. And it's a realization to this gay character that she's been through this kind of judgment herself, and she's kind of, I've been through it myself, and now I realized I can be just as bad sometimes, because it's a wake-up call to her to realize that, to realize that. And that's how I want to approach it. I want to approach that we are normal people, that again, like I said, that a lot of, the trans community, the trans community that voted for Trump never ceased to amaze me. But it kind of,
I will never understand
I'll
them.
never,
Ever.
I'll never understand that. And the point I'm trying to make is that the point I'm trying to make with that was to show her growing into her own thing, saying, hey, I'm not the only one who suffers from from a negative backlash to my lifestyle. and I've got to re-examine how I approach other people, because it's easy for me as a disabled person to actually think that my problems are the only thing that matter, you know. Uh, but I, you know, but at the same time, I'm a white disabled person, so I'm more fortunate than most able-bodied people of color um, out there. So these are things that I constantly have to remind myself of, and I think it's good that we bring negative reactions to to our. I hate the word lifestyle because it's not a lifestyle, but
No, I was going to correct you
yeah,
on that, actually.
please do. Okay, so but how people how people. I think it's a good thing that that we bring that especially in the kids show. We we I haven't watched all of Steven Universe. My wife assures me that the issues of society and against homosexuality does come up in Steven Universe. I don't know, but I want to make sure that kids understand that this is a problem that everybody faces. We live in a society that is constantly telling us what is normal, you know. And do you remember when Sesame Street got into trouble for bringing up Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah,
I was just talking to someone today about how the Trump Tower thing that they did in Sesame Street that everybody missed at the time was just glorious.
oh yeah,
Where Oscar gets kicked out of his trash can, and because some big real estate grouch conned him into building a garbage can tower. And that was really funny.
oh my goodness. But yeah, I think it's important that that we do bring this, but we do it in the do it in the right way. You know, I want something that services the plot rather than something that is there to sensationalize. And I didn't watch the Supergirl episode, sadly, so I can't really relate. But from what you're telling me is that they seem to more sensationalize the struggle than actually make it a plot point. Is that right?
It it really bothered me
Yeah,
because you've got on the one hand, this like I was saying, this one trans character who really has her shit together, which you know how I feel about that.
yeah,
Trans characters who have their shit together, and their lives are perfect, are great, but that's not the reality. Nobody has their shit together. Everybody's dealing with their own distinct issues. I feel like there are things that all trans people deal with that just aren't addressed. But
yeah,
anyway, on the other side of this, you've got the character who really has her shit together, and then you've got this other trans woman who's really early stage, and she's just victimized because. And I'm tired of seeing the victim narrative just in general. It's not something we need to dwell on, I think. I
no,
think the better way to do it as a culture is, show their progress.
yeah,
Show the characters starting in one place, getting closer to meeting their goals, and just sort of walking through the everyday thing in life. I think that's actually the stuff that most people don't know about trans people. You know,
yeah,
is that half the struggle is completely in your head. It's internal. You're working through the basics. You're struggling with your own internalized transphobia, sometimes your own internalized homophobia,
yeah,
um, and you have no idea how that messes with people. It really does. So you make progress, you get past it, and then if you're lucky, if you're one of the lucky ones, you get to be happy in the end. And I think that's actually a really compelling narrative myself. I think if you did it right, if you just sort of explained that one key bit, uh, I think it would not just give you characters that are, more relatable, but it would make, I think, the trans experience relatable to
Yeah,
everyone. I think they would have, I think the culture as a whole would have a much closer idea of what they're talking about when they're talking about trans people, because these things are as much education as they are entertainment.
yeah. I mean, I think that you know, my problems with Doctor Who and representation. I think I mentioned that in the last episode. Uh, but I think Torchwood actually handled it correctly with the Yanto Jack relationship. It was something that
I love Jack.
they developed that relationship. It was some. You could see how Yanto was pining after Jack, for the longest time, and how Jack was resisting that for the longest time. But the way they developed that, that final head canon into canon was very well done. You know, even though Jack was already this pansexual, polysexual character, they still worked on that relationship dynamic in the show. So I was impressed. Torchwood did it right, and I wish that the Doctor Who writers would pay attention to what they're doing, to what they did, and to how they handled um, gay relationships in Torchwood, because I think Doctor Who tends to just say, "Hey, this guy's gay. Let's just mention it. Let's just mention it and talk nothing of it. Talk nothing about it for the rest of the episode." you know.
Excuse me. I thought, just all things said, I feel like Torchwood had the best gay sex that had ever been on television, honestly.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
It
Yes.
did.
Say what you like about what was it, Miracle Day? It was a good episode. it was a very hot episode. I'll grant you that.
It was great. I don't remember, I mean, it's been years now, and I don't remember much else about the show, but oh my God, that scene, it was hot. It was enjoyable.
So speaking of torture, do you think it's time they brought it back, or do you think Miracle Day literally killed it off?
I want to see more. I want
Yeah.
to see more Torchwood. I want to see Jack and the TARDIS, damn it. I really do.
Well, I think you're going to get your chance at that in the Christmas special.
I hope so.
Yeah, they're doing a Christmas special. It's a Dalek special, so we know that much. We're pretty much 100% sure at this point that Jack is in the episode, because apparently he was on that scene he did for the Jadoon episode was actually on the same set they were filming the Dalek, the Christmas episode on as well. So there's a good sign.
Oh, that's exciting. I will watch that enthusiastically. In fact, I might even, if you're interested, I might even have a watch party for that
I
one.
would
Get some friends together.
I would be up for that. Unfortunately, I don't have BBC, so I have to. So I have to wait till I'm at my friend's place to watch it. But if it's running on your live stream, I'll watch it with you.
I can definitely get it.
Yeah,
I can 100% get it. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. My girlfriend my wife will probably be watching it with you as well. So with us as well. So that will be fun. But yeah,
I just wanna send out my invitation and let her know that she's totally welcome. Very
I'll
seriously.
I'll let her know. Speaking of Doctor Who, I've got to admit, I love Jodie as the Doctor. I'm just disappointed that they haven't given her big speech moment yet. What do you think?
I think I like Jodie as the Doctor. I want a big speech. I want multi-part stories that are fun. They started getting into that at the end. There was one great line in the Jadoon episode where they said, "Oh, hey, look, it's a Jadoon by a lagoon." I really appreciated that. I did.
Yeah, but yeah, Chris Chibnall. He's a difficult one for me to get my showrunner for me to get my head around sometimes. I think he's doing okay with the show. Like I said, I just wish that that he did more with More with Jodie, because I've worked with Jodie once, and she has so much more power behind her as an actress. He needs to give her more range, and when when Chimble gives her an important speech to say, it's almost like a dead end. But like that episode in the season 12, season 12, when they're on the wasteland planet, and she has this speech at the end, which just seemed, why are you telling us the obvious? It just seemed like a dead end speech, and then it just cut off. And I was very disappointed with how. Not with Jodie. Jodie did a fantastic job with what she was given, but they are still not giving her the power moment that I think she needs to establish herself as one of the doctors. I think they're almost afraid of her being the first female doctor.
I think they care about it a lot more than the fans do, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a fear thing because, I mean, let's be perfectly honest, you know? Peter Capaldi is one of the greatest actors ever to play Doctor Who. The writing they gave him is garbage.
When they gave him his speech moments, man, did he deliver them? I mean, I think the war speech was his finest moment, and I think the bird and the wall speech in Heaven Sent was the hellbent. You haven't said.
I thought his regeneration speech was beautiful. Don't be cruel, don't be cowardly, and it brought tears to my eyes. It really did.
But above all, be kind.
Exactly.
And that's how he ended it. He didn't make it about him. He made it about being the Doctor, and I think that was probably the failure of the last two regenerations, 10 and 11. 10 made it. It dragged on. His regeneration dragged on, and when he said, "I don't want to go," it was emotional. I cried when he first said that, but now looking back in it, I was kind of like, it was all about Tennant. It wasn't about being the Doctor. And then Matt Smith's regeneration, I will not forget one line of being me. I thought that was sweet, but at the same time, it's about Matt. But Peter Capaldi didn't even mention his experience as the Doctor once. He just turned around and said, "This is what it means to be the Doctor." And that was the best regeneration speech I ever heard in my life. I thought that was the best.
I liked 10. Seeing David Tennant go was hard because he was such an absolutely fantastic Doctor. He was perfect.
Oh yeah, he bought an entire. Eccleston was was a great 9 as well, but it was David Tennant that literally bought everybody in.
I was never an Eccleston fan. I thought just from the beginning that I felt like Eccleston didn't really get the character. He was trying to be funny in a completely weird and foreign way.
Well,
sort of stumbled through it. You could tell he didn't like to be there. He didn't want to be there, and it showed.
But the good thing about Eccleston is that he did what I don't think Tennant could have done. He bought, he showed that Doctor Who could be done. And he brought the old school back, the kind of people that kind of say, reboots don't work, that kind of thing. And and he proved them wrong, and I don't think Tennant could have done that. Tennant showed that a new actor could play the Doctor, so he proved that regeneration wasn't a bad thing. So that's the praise and also David Tennant was the Doctor that literally brought everybody else in. The old schoolers were already hooked on when Eccleston came in, but when David Tennant comes in, a whole new generation was hooked. Especially girls, fangirl. Fangirling. The fangirling will never end for that guy.
It's true. I still think though that Tennant has the best fangirls. I really do. As a David Tennant fangirl, I will tell you that, in a totally objective and unbiased way. Yep.
And I've noticed we've skipped over Matt Smith. I mean, I love Matt Smith as well. I think he was one of my favorites too. But he's not Peter Capaldi favorite level of favorite for me.
So I think I would have enjoyed Matt Smith, and I think I will enjoy Matt Smith better on the binge. But this business of 2 years between seasons really grates on me.
Yeah. I think that's what happens, when you get showrunners taking on too much work, and as a result, we suffered. I mean, that went on between the David Tennant and the Matt Smith years. Sadly, I mean, I remember when all we had between David Tennant's Regeneration and I think it was season 5, season 4, season 5, were just Easter and Christmas specials. Easter and Halloween specials. We had two specials, and then the Christmas. And so David Tennant did 4 feature-length episodes in 2011. Good grief! My God, this show's been going on a long time.
Oh yeah, it has. It's been quite a while. I just wish that, in general, and this goes beyond Doctor Who. This goes to like pretty much all good BBC shows. Their seasons are very short, and there is a lot of time between them. I wish they did things in the UK the way they do things in America as far as production.
Yeah, well, I think that it's British production is, especially on a show like Doctor Who, we don't have the money, to be honest with you. The average episode of Doctor Who is about $750,000 pounds. That's roughly about $1.2 million an episode. And I think when the BBC are looking at their budget, they're kind of going, we can either continue doing this EastEnders, which is non-stop, or we can wait a couple of years before we do the next season of Doctor Who, because with Doctor Who, they need to top themselves every time now. I think the Doctor Who has now fallen into this trope that they have to do better than they did last season. It's turned almost into how Marvel Comics has turned, with Avengers now and DC Comics, because their movies are so epic. Their titles have to be epic now, and the next problem they face has to be more difficult and more epic than they did before. And I think that's probably why I appreciated the Peter Capaldi finale year so much, because they didn't make the following season over epic. They literally kept to the same format, but now season 11 and season 12, the Jodie Foster years, you could see the difference in the production level between season 11 and season 12, especially with Spyfall. They went all out with Spyfall.
I loved Spyfall.
Yeah.
I did. It was fun. And seeing the Master come back at his best like this.
Yeah, he makes it. He was the great choice of the Master, and unexpected. I wasn't expecting that twist. At the end of that, I was like, "Oh my God!"
So the way I figure it, the Master is sort of like the Reverse Flash of Doctor Who. I don't think we were actually really 100% clear on the Master's timeline.
They did mention something in the Doctor Who annual where the Doctor says, "I liked you as Missy," and this Master says, "Yeah, and those were the worst years of my life." And that depends. Do you take written canon or soft canon as canon?
No.
Exactly.
No, don't.
So
you can't with Doctor Who. You can't take the radio shows as canon.
Yeah, I mean, I was grateful that with Paul McGann, when he did his 5-minute stint in Night of the Doctor, they did canonize his Big Finish run. So it's kind of like that gave him credibility that he found very hard to get as a result of the Doctor Who movie. So when he actually mentioned his companions from the Big Finish series, I was kind of, you're giving him credibility. I appreciate that, because Paul McGann was a good Doctor who suffered from very poor writing.
He was arguably, I think, the longest running Doctor. I mean, if you do take the Big Finish into consideration, I mean, he did that for a long time.
Oh yeah, he's still going. He's still doing this series. I'm like, do you think it's really time? And he's like, I don't think it's time for me to ever put up the cap. because he's so into what he's doing. He really enjoys it. But then again, when you're dealing with a character that can live for thousands of years, you could do this forever.
Oh, yeah, you can. Josh, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Just one more question, because this is the question I ask everybody on this one. I know we didn't talk comics very much, but if you were a superhero, what would your powers be, and what do you think your costume would look like?
Oh my God, what would my powers be? I guess my powers would be illusion, create thing, could create constructs out of nothing. And I think that my costume would be a steampunk magician.
I
I
love it.
think I would have the top hat and the goggles to go with it, or another superpower would be I would be a super conspiracy theorist with no face, like the Question, because I really love the Question. I don't know why. the, the Question, the Question was the best character in the DCAU, and I challenge anybody to tell me otherwise.
So, would that place you as a hero or a villain though? Usually, because characters with no face are coded evil generally.
He was such an interesting character, that one. I just think he was just crazy, because I think one of the best lines was when the Justice League were around the meeting place, and they're talking about something going on, and Batman says, "I got the Question looking in at it now," and everybody around the table starts to grumble and moan. So yes, I know, but he's the best man for the job. And there's this one scene I really love. He's singing this song. Comes up to a door and looks at the lock, strokes his finger along the lock, still singing his song. Goes, walks away for a bit, comes back with a potted plant and breaks open the glass.
Nice.
So yeah, so I would either be an illusionist like Zatanna, because she's my comic book crush. There, I said it.
I love Zatanna.
Yeah, and or the Question.
Such a great costume.
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah, I've had a crush on Zatanna for years. She's not real, Josh. She's not real. I don't care. It's an illusion. Let me have my illusion.
You know, if I was a little thinner, I would cosplay that one. I would.
I would like to see that. I would do a gender swap with Zatanna. Actually, I think I
There
will.
you go.
I'll do my
There
gender
you
swap
go.
with Zatanna.
Sweet. Just keep the fishnets,
I'll find a way. I've actually worn fishnets. I was Frankenfurter twice in the Rocky Horror Show, and the Butler in my last showing as well. So I'm no stranger to fishnets.
Awesome.
So I'll let you wait for that with anticipation.
Patient. There you go.
There you go.
Well, Josh, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for doing the show with me, and I'm gonna call it a wrap.
All right, and don't be a stranger.
And now it's time for the credits. Wasn't Josh fabulous? They are so much fun. Don't forget to check out their YouTube channel, link in the description. Titular Characters is a podcast developed and produced by the adorable Eva Webb. That's me. This week's cover art was done by Lexiva, who is awesome. I love her. She's absurdly talented. Our shiny new theme song was composed by Antonia Marquis. Join us next time for another exciting adventure in cyberspace. Oh, and when you do, bring candy.